Digital Extremes has just released Soulframe Preludes, the game's public pre-alpha. If you don't know, Digital Extremes are the same developers behind Warframe. Soulframe is a fantasy action RPG that you can play solo or online co-op. Compared to Warframe, it is much more focused on exploration, atmosphere and storytelling. So no, it's not just a Warframe with swords. That's honestly what I thought before I tried. The pace is much slower and it's clearly trying to deliver a completely different kind of experience. One important thing to keep in mind is that this is still Preludes, which is a public pre-alpha. This means a lot of systems are still being developed and could change quite a bit over the next few months. Also, just a quick note. Soulframe isn't available on Steam yet. You have to download the launcher from the official website. I first tried running it on Linux through Wine, but honestly the experience was terrible. Even the opening cutscene was lagging badly, and the gameplay was basically unplayable. Then I switched to Windows and everything changed. The game runs smoothly without any issue, so in my case it looks like a Wine compatibility problem rather than a problem with the game itself. The first thing that really stood out to me was the art direction. Soulframe is a beautiful game and the atmosphere grabs you almost immediately. At least during the first 30 minutes, the gameplay is mostly about following quests and talking to different characters. If you press G, a little bird called Grandpa Sparrow appears and points you in the right direction for a few seconds. I ended up using it quite a lot because I found the opening of the game a little confusing. The story keeps moving between what looks like the real world and some kind of dream world, and after about half an hour I still wasn't really sure what was going on. Of course, we cannot avoid to compare it to Warframe. Movement feels much heavier and less fluid. It doesn't even come close to the freedom and responsiveness that Warframe gives you from the beginning. That's obviously a design choice, but it's something I noticed almost immediately. One thing that really caught my attention was the water physics. I had already noticed it in the trailers, and playing the game confirmed that feeling. The way your character interacts with the water doesn't feel very natural. Walking through it looks a bit strange and objects don't seem to behave quite the way you'd expect. Soulframe also keeps a few interface ideas from Warframe. For example, you can press tab to browse between item information, and there's also a loadout system that will feel familiar if you've played Warframe before. Overall, the game looks very well made. The visuals are gorgeous, the lighting is soft and natural, which makes the world feel really immersive. The sound design also does a great job, and together they make you feel like you are actually standing out there in those open fields. What I wasn't completely sold on was the way the game explains what you're supposed to do. It relies quite heavily on Grandpa Sparrow to guide you around. For instance, during the last pensive, the task was find he who owns the pensive tower, and later where lies the spectre's quill. Honestly, I had no idea where to start looking. I basically pressed G a few times and blindly followed the bird. I'm still not sure if that's intentional game design or if I just wasn't understanding the quests properly. Near one magical tree, I also noticed a few other players. I'm not sure yet how much you can actually interact with them. So yeah, Soulframe is still in a very early stage, and that's exactly why this pre-alpha exists, to collect feedback from players. There's still no official release date, and personally I get the feeling this is a game that's meant to be played slowly. It feels more like an interactive journey than a game you're trying to rush through. My first impression is that Soulframe wants you to experience its world rather than simply play through it, and I think you need to be in the right mood for that. Maybe it's because TennoCon just ended, but after about 30 minutes Soulframe hasn't really hooked me yet. That said, I definitely want to come back and give it another chance later, maybe when I'm more in the mood for this kind of immersive experience. Anyway, these are just my very first impression of a pre-alpha. I'll definitely keep an eye on Soulframe because I'm curious to see how it evolves over the coming months. Let me know if you've tried it already and what is your first impression here.